Welcome to today's solo podcast episode, where we'll be discussing a topic that I feel like some of us struggle with some point throughout our lives, and that is the guilt or feeling guilty of wanting more out of our lives. Have you ever felt that there's more for you and you establish or get that feeling of feeling guilty because you desire to have more? And that desire could show up in different ways, whether it's in a form of material things, having more money, having more influence, or just simply more out of life. I feel like this area can show up for us, but we're too afraid to actually ask the much deeper question, which is beneath the guilt, what actually lies? Is it a fear of success? Is it a fear of failure? Is it a fear of looking cringy or stupid or like you don't know anything? The question, though, we forget to ask, and it can show up in different ways in our life or businesses, depending on what area we're wanting to improve. And that feeling guilty is usually placed upon us, although no one else can make us feel a certain way, usually stems from an outside source that we've allowed to come in because we've yet to identify within us why we might be feeling that way. So if we're looking at it this way and we're wanting to break it down in, let's call it 3 parts. First, we want to identify the reason in which you're feeling guilty towards whatever it is that you want. Let's insert, say, a new car, more money, improving your business, having more freedom of your time, whatever it is. Identify the reason that shows up for you. And it could be that you have a fear of failure. I've had a client before who personally wanted more for her business. Currently in the fitness space, where she goes to the gym every day. She trains her clients in a one-on-one basis, but just for her, she wanted more. She knew that she could help in a bigger way, but the thought of her wanting that more, she felt like she couldn't do it. So for her, it showed up in a way of fear of failure because she didn't want to look, in her words, cringy, or like she didn't know what she was doing. So for her, that guilt beneath it was just, well, I don't want to look stupid. I and herself were able to help craft a plan in which she's able to start identifying ways in which she might self-sabotage herself from showing up how she's meant to in order to get what she actually wants. And what she actually wants is to help more people, to have greater freedom of time, and of course, to make more money like we all do. So the second thing is then obviously understanding why or how it shows up. And so for her, it shows up in self-sabotaging ways in which she just chooses not to do anything. Telling herself that when she films takes a photo of herself, or maybe films a reel or goes to show up on social media, it's too cringy. And then she'll start to pick apart why it doesn't work, why it's not helpful, or it's just people won't want to see that. So she'll remove it. Another way she does this is by telling herself that she doesn't have time. For me, this is probably one of the biggest things that show up with my clients is the feeling like we don't have time. And I'm so guilty of this before in my life where I just didn't want to do it. And if I identified the fact that when I'm telling myself, oh, I don't have all this time, if I just identified that, no, I don't want to do it, and there's a reason that I don't want to do it, I can better understand the reason that something's not getting done. Like on one hand, I know I want this and I know I want to do it, but I'm making up all the excuses like I don't have time, or the video's not good enough, or the photo's terrible, or I didn't help enough people. Because the root underlying issue is just that I'm afraid to fail. And if I admitted that to myself, then what could happen? Nothing happens if we admit to ourselves that we're afraid of failure. We just know that it's there and we're able to accept it and move from a place of understanding and compassion to the direction that we want. One of my other clients, she actively self-sabotaged in ways where she would fill her schedule with things that she didn't necessarily want to do. But because somebody else asked her to do it, she's like, well, I'll do it. Because that guilt of not being able to, uphold herself to a standard that she thought other people expected of her meant that she filled her schedule so much she couldn't actually do the things that she wanted to do, which for her was, again, that freedom of time, being able to create a life that she wanted and to make more money. So for her, being able to identify the areas in which it shows up, how she's stopping herself from getting those things, you're able to create a plan or a direction in which you want to move forward. So for client A, the third step, creating a plan on how she moves forward, is creating an accountability system. Being able to identify for herself, because she's the only one who can move herself forward, is that if she sabotages in X, Y, and Z ways by deleting posts or not showing up for herself or being like, I don't have time, then creating an accountability structure with her that she has to follow that keeps her accountable in the forms of, okay, these are the days you have to show up on social media. These are the days that you have to do X, Y, and Z's, and these are the scheduled times in which you have to do it, helped her be able to move the needle forward, even if it was only in the slightest way. Each day that she was able to do that compounded over time. And the compound from day goes to week goes to month goes to year. And before she knows it, she's in the place that she wanted just by recognizing that one small little thing, which was she was afraid to fail. But she ended up getting exactly what she wanted just by identifying that one thing and keeping at it and compounding it over time, keeping herself accountable to what she wanted. Client 2 had to establish boundaries and time limits that what she gave herself to do for other people. So working in a 9 to 5, she had to identify areas in which she's overextending herself into her off hours. Now, is it because she's actually wanting to do it and she's actually getting paid for it? Or is this overtime that she's not getting paid for her work and she could be doing things for herself, like working on her own business or doing the things that she wants to do outside of that, instead of just simply saying, I don't have time? By creating those boundaries and structures for herself, she was able to find time again, and she found the energy and the want and the will to be able to build her small business, and then have time for a life that she actually wanted, which was freedom of her time and more money. When we're able to identify the root cause of things, then we're able to zoom the magnifying glass. I was like, what is that? Magnifying glass or lens out, where we can look at the bigger picture and be like, okay, this is where I am, but that's where I want to be. So how do I go from point A to point B without getting halfway to point B and going back to A? And actually, to be totally honest, this can actually be applied to most other things, right? You identify the problem and ask yourself whether it's coming from a deeper meaning or a deeper place or whatever it is. So identify the deep core issue or problem. Understand how it shows up or why it shows up. And then put a plan in place to try and help move yourself out of it. If it's a reoccurring pattern or behavior or like system that you have in your life, you'll always fall to the level of your systems and or behaviors or patterns. And that's why they need to be changed, especially if they don't suit the life that you have. They don't suit the life that you want. So when you take those 3 steps to basically any area of your life, that's when change will be able to happen. And you'll realize that, the guilt that you might have for desiring more slowly goes away because the people that you're surrounding yourself with now are better or different or more improved or more elevated or want more things like you do. And that's not a bad thing. We're constantly evolving and changing in different ways. And if you're at a place in your life where you're like, I want more, but I feel guilty for wanting more, ask yourself where that comes from. And when you ask yourself that question and you're able to find the deep reason as to whatever it is or why it is the way that it is, I promise you'll be able to put a plan in place, keep yourself accountable, have somebody keep you accountable as well, and watch your life begin to change. Your 3 tasks for the end of the episode is 1, identify the problem or the thing that's popping up for you constantly. In this case, the guilt for wanting more or desiring to have more. 2, understand where it comes from and why it shows up when it does or how it does. And 3, put a plan in place to get yourself out of there, whether that be seeking help, seeking mentors, coaches, or surround yourself with people who also want more. And that in itself will drive you to also want more. So I hope this episode was helpful for you today. If you have any questions, please email me or jump on my Instagram and shoot me a question, and I'll be more than happy to help you